Hello YouTube family, today we have 3 segments coming to you, so get cozy, grab something hot to drink, and let's go. Please like, subscribe, and follow for more. Now we will be having a discussion at the end of the episode, so enjoy. I know people will hate me for this, but it is something I have held in for years and need to tell someone. I've been in therapy for 4 years and still haven't told my therapist this. I married my second husband in 1988. I was 22 and my parents lived thousands of miles away because the guy I had just married was on base in the state I still lived in. I didn't realize my husband had a temper while we were together. I mean, he and I never even got in an argument while we were together. 2 weeks after we got married, he hit me for the first time. I didn't tell anyone because I thought it was a one-time thing. Then I just thought that the reason he hit me was because I didn't cook, and maybe I should have. Even though I was raised to defend myself, and if I called my dad, I knew he would probably off him. I kept it a secret and tried not making him mad. It worked. He didn't hit me for a couple of more months. The second time I came home late after hanging out with friends. I had a curfew that was 7 o'clock and it was 10 after 10 when I walked into the house. I figured I could explain because my friends had picked me up and had an emergency, so I just went with her. As soon as I was closing the door and barely turned around, I woke up. He had knocked me out as soon as I came in the door. I woke up with an overly swollen face and bruises all over my stomach, chest, and legs. I had to go to the hospital. He broke a lot of stuff, but I don't want to get to the gory stuff on here. I left him when I got home. I flew to my mom and dad's and filed for divorce a couple of days later. Crazy thing is, I had my brand new car and a lot of clothes and other stuff there, and I knew I had to go back before I left. I ended up leaving anyway, and a couple months later, my brother, dad, and I flew down there to get the rest of my stuff and my car because after we got married, my now ex-husband cut my driver's license up and told me I was grounded from driving for 6 months. That's because I came home late from the store one night. When we arrived, he wasn't home, which was ordered by the court because I had a restraining order. Oh yeah. He stalked me at my parents' after I filed for divorce. We caught him on my parents' security cameras. A cop was with us. While going through my stuff, I found a note. Before I tell you that, John, my second husband, had 3 kids. John was 12 years older than me and had been married and divorced twice before. Anyway, the note read, "Why didn't you come back for us? We waited. Why did you lie?" I cried reading that. You see, John ran the house like his own military base and worked his kids to the brink. If they didn't do what he said or got tired before they were done, he would make them sit their knees in rice for an hour, and it was horrifying. It isn't like I didn't do anything about it. I talked to my divorce lawyer and she did what she could do, but they couldn't prove any of it. Honestly, I don't know how because those kids had scars from the rice on their knees. You literally could see permanent imprints of rice on their legs. And those cops had the nerve to say that there was no evidence of abuse. My first husband and I still talked, so his mother worked as a social worker and I asked her what I should do. And the only thing she did was make a call to the police. They went to his house, but I guess the kids didn't get taken. On my way home, I stopped by their mother's house where they lived, most of the time with her and most of the time with her dad. I talked to them. I gave them my number and told them to call if it got worse. They never did call. 2 weeks ago, the youngest, whom was 2 when I married John, took his own life, and I'm pretty tore up about it. He was 38, and I know he had to have been treated badly, and I wish I could have done more. After he moved out of his dad's when he was 18, he took up drinking and drugs, and that's where it all went downhill. I ran into him about 10 years ago, and I had known from a friend that he had started using after he turned 18. It was obvious that his dad destroyed him. My family have 3 beautiful kids, and that is because I was lucky enough to get remarried. I could have done more, I feel. I still feel guilty. I still have guilt, and my family tells me I shouldn't, but I can't help but feel at fault for their life. I married again a few years later after our divorce also, and we are still together. He treats me like an angel. I feel bad I couldn't have brought them with me so that they'd have a better life. Okay, so this just happened a few days ago when I was on a road trip with my cousin. I'll be referring to him again as James like I have in past stories. For a quick reference, I'm 13 and female. James is 21. James and I were on a road trip from my grandmother's to my aunt's house. I have a great relationship with my cousin, so my parents let me go on trips with him occasionally. It's about a 10-hour drive, and we were about 3 hours into the drive. It was about 9 p.m. at the time. I was pretty sleep deprived and everything was hilarious at that moment, so when I saw this red semi-truck outside my window, I just laughed my ass off. The man in the truck was heavy-set and had a long untamed beard. He had a creepy vibe, but I waved to them. He in turn did a groping motion to me. Finding it more hilarious than creepy, I started laughing harder and told James the story, doing the whole groping motion and all. He looked creeped out and disgusted, but there wasn't anything either of us could do. A while later, about 4.5 hours into our drive, James pulled into a rest stop. I walked into the bathroom, and when I came out, the man was just standing there. He looked about 6 foot at least. I looked out the glass door leading into the building and saw James glaring daggers at the door. I was confused and walked back to the car. What he told me really creeped me out so much I started crying. Then again, I had been awake for around 20 hours. The man had stared and followed me inside to the building, mumbling stuff about me. James said he was basically talking normal. He attempted to confront me, but quickly said he had to go to the bathroom and went inside. A few seconds later, when I was in the car, the guy was at my window. He started saying I should go with him. He was going to treat me good. He offered me candy and tried to coax me into his truck. I was busy bawling my eyes out. Then, right on cue, James walks out and yells at the guy and threatens him. The guy backed off and got into his truck. He still just stared at me, the grin still on his face. We floored it out of there. We wanted to get as far from that guy as possible. It was around 12 a.m. when we pulled into a motel to get some sleep. The rest of the night, until 8 a.m., was fine. Nothing really happened. Sadly, that didn't last long. When we were at a restaurant eating breakfast, the same guy sat across from us. He grinned at me and James looked pissed off. The guy walked by the table when going to the bathroom and brushed his hand on my shoulder, doing the same thing on the way back. A quick note. James is a chill dude and will let most of anything slide, but because he's known me since I was just a baby, he's protective over me. He's not like that to even my siblings. He and I are close. He was obviously pissed before, but at this point he stood up from his seat and walked over to the guy's table. He started yelling crap about he better stop following us and back off of me. He made no threats, but he did curse a lot. I felt pretty nervous and just wanted to go. The guy stood up and smacked James and yelled how I was leading him on. The guy was 6 foot and James was 6'8". Their argument continued until the cops came and separated it. They got the story and came to the conclusion that because he was assaulted, we could press charges. He said no and we just continued the day. The rest of the trip was pretty bland. The guy wasn't seen for the rest of it. However, James did follow me like a bodyguard wherever we went. Even though he was protecting me, I was terrified. He looked so scary, but he's a cinnamon roll. Also on the trip, I tried to ask him about what happened when I was 7. It was another story I posted before, and he just played dumb. Boy wouldn't tell me nothing. Anyway, hope you enjoyed reading this. Anyone who wants to narrate it can. Just send me a link when you do. Bye-bye. I should mention that I previously lived in a tiny town, but went to high school in a considerably larger city. I never had a reason or the nerve to go out of the city on my own, so when my 2 friends wanted to hang around town, I was nervous to say the least. However, I thought, hey, what the hell, I'll be with them. We had a blast for a couple of hours after school. with some small scary incidents along the way, including walking through a store full of expensive statues and gemstones with a massive backpack protruding from my back, and the original restaurant we wanted to go to was closed, forcing us to Subway. However, as it got dark, we all knew we had to go home, so we all enjoyed one last store and went our separate ways. I waited outside the store, alone, in the dark, not terribly afraid yet. I had told my mother where to find me, but she was hopeless with directions, so I had expected to be hanging around there for a while. I noticed a news camera stationed outside the store, which made me feel even safer, but about 10 minutes into the wait, I was approached by two men. My memory is fuzzy due to how freaked I was, but this was what I remember. Hey, do you know where name of town that I can't remember is? I shook my head. I was already nervous because I'm a paranoid person on the best of days, and this was not turning out to be the best of days. Come on, one man coaxed. Listen, we'll give you a bag of jewelry if you help us, the other man said. Now I was genuinely freaking out. I glanced around and noticed the news camera and stepped a little closer to the line of sight of the lens, not enough to make them notice. Listen, I stammered, trying really hard not to stammer or show how freaked I was. I think it's that way. I don't need anything, I said, pointing in a random-ass direction. They glanced in the direction of my finger. They glanced back. Can you show us? Again, we have a bag of jewelry. It felt as if my heart leaped out of my throat. No, thank you, and my mom is coming to get me. I declined as calmly as I could. They stared at me for a few seconds, then nodded, thanking me and heading off in the direction I pointed at. I kept well in the line of sight of the news camera until my mother picked me up. I didn't fully relax for a full week. I have absolutely no idea why they were so eager to give me a bag of jewelry. My thought was that they stole it and wanted to throw the police off their trail by handing it to someone like me. The second was that they were trying to lure me away with jewelry. Either way, it wouldn't have ended well for me, if that was the goal. No one believed me, but I didn't expect them to, really. I have never felt comfortable in the city alone in the dark ever since, even though it's been 2 years and I now live in a decently sized city for college. What's going on with the YouTube family? Hopefully you enjoyed the stories. Before we get started, I know we haven't been on a steady schedule and that we released this series in March, I think, maybe April, and this is the third episode. Of course, since starting this series, I have run into personal issues. Nothing serious, but enough to put the show on hold, and I know if I keep doing what I'm doing, then the podcast will never take off the way I want it to. Plus, our editing company has been having issues. We use the CapCut editing platform and have had issues with that ever since starting the series, so we're looking for different platforms to edit our videos on. Now, it looks like out of billions of people around the world, we only have 3 people that like the show, and that being said, we literally have 3 followers. So, it's time to start getting serious, so I've finished recording 2 more episodes and they are fully edited and ready for release, just like this one. Now let's talk about the segments today. Some of them were emailed to us and some we got off Reddit. I've noticed we get way more emailed stories than we do stories from Reddit. I think I have about 30 stories to read off of my email. A lot of them were sent to a friend of mine who had recently ended their podcast of the same thing we're doing, and so she just ended her podcast, which is the same as mine. Like I said, we asked permission on Reddit, but with emails they're already sent to us with permission, so it's easier to do the emails than the Reddits. So that being said, if you have any stories you want to share, send them to shadowsofthedaynight@gmail.com. Okay, the only thing I really have to say is I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm pretty sure most of you would say this, but if you have a friend that hasn't got a ride and has to catch the bus, it is probably a good idea to wait with them so incidents like this don't happen. I think this young lady was pretty lucky to have a news channel close by.
I don't doubt that that had to do something with them not doing what they actually wanted to do. I don't know why no one believed her. Also, I mean that's ridiculous to me. I mean, this stuff happens every day and usually ends up ending in a completely disturbing way. And I'm glad she got out of the situation. What's your opinion on these stories? Post your thoughts in the comments. Now, the second story, this one completely disturbed me. Not only was this a child, barely a teenager, but we have a grown-ass man that has the nerve to say that the girl was leading him on. I'm sorry, but her brother wasn't the smartest. I would have definitely pressed charges and told the police about that disgusting waste. Not much else to say, but if this happens, you need to take immediate action and get some help. This was a seriously disturbed individual who doesn't need to be on the streets whatsoever. But what is your opinion on this story? Post your thoughts in the comments. Now, the last story, I will try to keep from getting mad here. She is absolutely 100% positively not at fault. She had to get out of there, and who knows how long it would have been before he hurt her to the point of no return. I just can't imagine what women go through when they're in a relationship like this. It is really sad for the children. I hate more than anything they had to go through this, and it is unbelievable how evil some people are, and especially a parent, an adult who knows from right and wrong, does this to children. But I don't blame her a bit. She had to get out of that situation. I feel bad for the children, yes, always. But she had to get out of that situation. There was nothing she could have done. What is your opinion on these stories? Post your thoughts in the comments. I will see you all on the next episode.